Radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. All right, so I have insomnia, but I've never slept better. And what's changed? Just a pillow. It's had such a positive impact on my life. And, of course, I'm talking about MyPillow. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep longer, and now you can, too. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Use the promo code Hannity, and Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, has the special 4-pack. Now, you get 40% off 2 MyPillow Premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, MyPillow is made here in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, and a 10-year warranty. Go to MyPillow.com right now or call 800-919-6090, promo code Hannity, to get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack offer. You get 2 MyPillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows for 40% off, and that means once those pillows arrive, you start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep that you've been craving and you certainly deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity. You will love this pillow. All right, what a day this is, and we've got more to say than we could possibly get in the course of a 3-hour program. 800-941-SEAN, you want to be a part of the program. Full, complete reaction from Jay Sekulow to the Manafort indictment, which had nothing to do with the president, nothing to do with his campaign, nothing to do with campaign activity. And when we get to the specifics of this, you will see everything I have been saying is true. The challenge for America today is as deep and profound as any moment in our history, considering all that we have been breaking in the last number of weeks as it relates to the phony Russian Fusion, GPS, Hillary, DNC, Obama-funded dossier with misinformation, propaganda, all designed to mislead the American people and impact an election. So anyway, Jay Sekulow, Victoria Tunsing, who is the attorney for the FBI informant in the Uranium One case, you know, now that we've discovered bribery and extortion and kickbacks and money laundering and all sorts of racketeering crimes involved, and now we've discovered Robert Mueller and people like Rod Rosenstein and Eric Holder and maybe even then President Obama knew about Putin's designs on getting into the uranium market in America. They did nothing to protect national security, and then the Clintons sold it out. And we'll get those details in the course of the program. Laura Ingraham stops by today. We'll get the attorney aspect of all this with David Limbaugh and Greg Jarrett in the course of the program. I've just got to say one thing before I get started, and I'll have more maybe later in the program if time allows. So we launched this movie on Friday, and we're now told it's one of the top 5 ever grossing faith-based film debuts in the history of movie making. This is beyond successful. Let me give you some. It is our movie, independent. No studio would touch us, and nor did we really want them in the beginning because we wanted to tell our story, not have any input, any people telling us what to do or what to say. And, yeah, it does mention faith, but it's a heartwarming story that, you know, I'm blown away by the reviews. I'm blown away by the tweets. I'm blown away by the reaction. Everything that I ever wanted this movie to be, it has been, and then some. Let there be light. We were in the top 10 of all movies this weekend. Here's the catch. When you look at the top 10 movies in America this past weekend, all of them were over 2,000 screens. We only had 14% of the average screens of the other top 10 movies, the other 9. Let me give you an example. George Clooney and, what's his name, Matt Damon. Linda, what's the name of their movie? I don't even know the name of the stupid thing.
Suburbicon.
Right. Okay. So their movie was in 2,046 theaters. Our movie was in 373. We almost did as well as they did. We had an on-screen average of over 5,000. Their on-screen average was 1,300. We had a 90% like rating on Rotten Tomatoes. If you look at we were the second, behind the number one movie, the second highest per-screen attendance of any movie in the country this weekend. And let me just say one other thing. We had everything riding as an independent with only 14% of the screens that every other movie had. To be able to break through this way now is ensured. We have all these people calling us today. Can we have your movie? 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 Can we have your movie for DVD? Can we have it for on demand? Can we have your movie for foreign distribution? Can we have your movie for that? Now everybody believes. The good thing for me is everything that I wanted this movie to be, touching people's hearts, your minds, your souls. I read more feedback that have touched me so deeply. It's everything that I ever dreamed it could be, and there was a lot riding on this weekend, much more than you would ever know, and it doesn't really matter. The good news, because so many of you went this weekend, and some of you really went out of your way, is now so many more people are going to see this movie. We're going to have more theaters next weekend and the week after. That means we're going to stay in the theaters now for a so much longer period of time. We could have been out this week. And it also means that, it triggers all these output deals, which means everybody's going to be able to see this movie, which was the whole purpose. All right. So we'll have more on that later in the program. Paul Manafort's lawyer has now just stepped to the microphone. Let's ask him. Let's listen to him, rather.
And in that, he was seeking to further democracy and to help the Ukraine come closer to the United States and the EU. Those activities ended in 2014, over 2 years before Mr. Manafort served in the Trump campaign. Today, you see an indictment brought by an Office of Special Counsel that is using a very novel theory to prosecute Mr. Manafort regarding a FARA filing. The United States government has only used that offense 6 times since 1966 and only resulted in 1 conviction. The second thing about this indictment that I myself find most ridiculous is a claim that maintaining offshore accounts to bring all your funds into the United States as a scheme to conceal from the United States government is ridiculous. Thank you.
Well, what should the White House think about what he has to say? Should the White House worry?
Well, that's the lawyer for Paul Manafort.
All right, that's Kevin Downing, the lawyer for Paul Manafort. Pretty amazing. Wow. So that's a pretty... Now, let me go through all of this here. So you have Paul Manafort, and you have a guy by the name of Rick Gates. It's a 31-page indictment. Let me start with the highlights here. No allegations against the president. Now, you got to pay close attention because your media out there is so full of breathless hysteria and reporting out there that none of this has a single thing to do with Trump-Russia collusion. We are now facing a moment of truth and crisis in America, which I'm going to explain to you. It goes on. Nothing to do with the president, nothing to do with the presidential campaign, nothing to do with campaign activity, and yet we have evidence of real crimes, which I will explain to you in just a second. There's another guy, George Papadopoulos, and, he apparently is I never heard of the guy, never heard of him, and I was as close to the Trump campaign as anybody, and apparently he was desperately trying to get people higher up in the campaign so he can get a meeting, and he wanted to get a meeting with some Russian actor, etc. He's banging the doors of everybody, and everybody in the campaign ignored this guy. Nobody paid attention. So you got a 31-page indictment. You've got the money, which is all about money and finances of Paul Manafort, going all the way back to 2006. The last transfer is 2014, long before Paul Manafort even knew, or any of us knew, that Donald Trump was even running for president. And what's so fascinating about this is all the evidence that we do have. Now, in terms of Manafort and Rick Gates, I'm listening to his attorney, this specific crime indictment, I've been telling you that they're going to overreach. I've been telling you that there's going to be investigative creep. I've been telling you that there is no and remains no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, although there is evidence of Hillary Clinton, Fusion, GPS, and real collusion, real payments, $12 million Hillary campaign, DNC, and even apparently, according to the weekend reports, Obama kicked in about $1 million. And that was all going to this guy in Great Britain, a former agent there, and he's using Russian sources, paying for false misinformation about Donald Trump. That information is bought and paid for by the Clintons. That information is used by Democratic activists, by television reporters, so-called reporters, and the mainstream media, and it's regurgitated again and again. And all it was Russian propaganda, misinformation, disinformation to help Hillary Clinton win the race and impact the election. Now, in terms of Paul Manafort, and by the way, where's the special counsel into what is real collusion? Now, Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, you look at their 12-count indictment, 31 pages, under what they're accused of, acting for a decade as unregistered agents of the Ukrainian government, hiding tens of millions of dollars in income for work from the U.S. government, laundering the proceeds through scores of corporations, partnerships, bank accounts, abroad and offshore, et cetera, et cetera. And they're claiming both men hid their work for the former Ukrainian president. By the way, and they're trying to make the money appear closer than it ever was. The last transfer of money was 2014. And that's what they're claiming. And this is work for the Ukrainian president, by the way, which plenty of Democrats do for plenty of countries. I know Dick Morris did it for tons of countries. I know the Podestas have done it for tons of countries. Manafort, they're claiming, laundered more than $18 million. All right, so the lavish lifestyle. Okay, let's find out if, in fact, this was legitimate money, whether he paid taxes, whether he had a tax liability and whatever. We'll find out what the truth is. But this has nothing to do with what this special counsel was appointed to do. And of all people, Alan Dershowitz got it. What they want to do is they want to put Manafort in a chair and say, Paul, you're facing 30 years in jail. Paul, we're going to go full bore. Paul, what can you tell us about Donald Trump? Mueller cares about nailing Trump. He doesn't give a rip about Paul Manafort or General Flynn. The greatest irony in all of this is not only the Fusion GPS deal that I told you about, Russian propaganda bought and paid for to impact the American people before the election. We don't have a special counsel on this. But all the people involved in this, from Rosenstein, who appointed Mueller, both of them and Eric Holder, and likely even President Obama himself. Hillary was up to her eyeballs, as were her husband, in the Uranium One deal. And they knew, many of them knew back in 2009, that Vladimir Putin had a network within the United States that was using bribery and extortion and money laundering and racketeering to get a foothold in the uranium market in America. Mueller knew in 2009 as the FBI director. Eric Holder was the head of the Department of Justice, which oversees the FBI. Brad Rosenstein looked at it, and his job, it was his specific purview where he was working at the time. And then Hillary Clinton, literally, not only did she sign off on it, Eric Holder signed off. Nobody cared or stopped the bribery, extortion, and all these crimes going on. And on top of it, Bill Clinton doubles his speaking fees in Moscow, supports the deal. The bank that paid him literally had a financial interest in Uranium One. Bill Clinton's in favor of it. He's asking his own wife's State Department to meet with nuclear officials when he's getting his $500,000 in Moscow. Instead, he meets directly with Vladimir Putin, and then $145 million from all the people associated with the Uranium One deal, which sacrificed our national security. Literally, they send back $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. This is so corrupt. So now it's a matter of, does America have the stomach? Do we have equal justice under the law? That's the question I'm going to be asking today, tonight, and elsewhere.
What do you think of when you hear the word Lutheran? Do you think liberal, women in clerical collars, gay marriage, social justice warriors? Find out how the 16th century Lutheran Reformation was really a conservative movement intent on reform, not revolution. With the podcast Issues Etc., issuesetc.net, Real Reformation Radio, issuesetc.net, issuesetc.net.
All right, as we roll along, Sean Hannity Show. One of the things you've got to understand about grand juries, especially in areas where Donald Trump, I think, got 4% of the vote. But putting all that aside, you got to remember the defense never gets to talk to the grand jury. You've heard the statement you can indict a ham sandwich. There's a lot of truth to that, actually. And the reason that you have Mueller going after Manafort and this other guy's finances is pretty basic and simple. What do you know about Trump? You tell us about Trump, we're gonna lessen your sentence. But the grand jury, remember, their standard is far much lower than that of beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is, probable cause is not the standard that Paul Manafort's going to face. He pled innocent in the court proceeding today. But you got to understand, so his lawyer spoke today for the first time, and he talked about what Paul Manafort was trying to do. He said he was trying to seek to further democracy and help the UK come to the U.S. and the EU. These activities ended in 2014, over 2 years before Manafort served ever in the Trump campaign. And he writes, and he says that today, as you've seen in the indictment brought by the Office of Special Counsel, that is using a novel theory to prosecute Manafort regarding the foreign agent filing requirements of the U.S. government. And he points out that has only been used as an offense and a charge 6 times since 1966. Only one of those 6 resulted in any conviction. He said the second thing about this indictment, which Manafort, now his lawyer has finally spoken, which I find ridiculous, is maintaining offshore accounts to bring all your funds into the U.S. as a scheme to conceal them from the U.S. government. Well, that indicates that they feel that they've paid all necessary taxes and did nothing illegal. And offshore accounts is not, by its very nature, illegal. Now, what's fascinating about this George Papadopoulos, he admitted he lied to the FBI. What did I tell you all the time? I said, I love the FBI. And my friends in the FBI have told me, God, do you ever talk to the FBI? Don't talk to them. And I said, well, I love the FBI. I want to help the FBI. He goes, it doesn't matter. He goes, you'll be charged with lying to the FBI, which is a crime, if you say one thing. And I said, so let me get this straight. So for my own protection, I can't help an agency that I happen to love and respect most of its members. And they go, yep, that's what my FBI friends tell me. But the Papadopoulos, it's literally, he wanted to create an anti-Clinton dossier. And he got nowhere because nobody in the campaign paid attention to him. Meanwhile, we have a real Russian paid-for Clinton, DNC, Obama paid-for dossier. We've got the evidence. They paid for the propaganda. All right, 25 till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. There's nothing in this Manafort indictment, nothing. Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, not a thing in their 12-count indictment that has to do with the president or Russia or the campaign or campaign activity. Nothing. No allegations of the president or the campaign. The media, the way they're spinning this is just the opposite. So you got a special prosecutor indictment out here of Paul Manafort is actually the best evidence yet that the Russiagate witch hunt has come up pretty empty. And now the tactics they're using are just try to intimidate Manafort into saying something to lower his sentence or eliminate his sentence. And the same would go for Gates, assuming that it happened. Now, because Mueller's big Russiagate indictment has nothing to do with Russiagate, it's now a huge, massive problem for the Democrats because Mueller is really their last chance now to confirm the conspiracy theory with no evidence that they have been hyperventilating over now for a year. All congressional investigations have come up empty. Every major player is just, well, there's plenty of smoke, and there's smoke, and there's plenty of smoke, and no fire, no fire, no fire, no pens on fire. Nothing. So the list of scandals now that have sprung from these investigations are far worse than anything Trump has been accused of, which is, frankly, that's the investigative creep that I warned you about. And they all point fingers towards the Democrats. As a result, what do we now need to investigate? The unmasking scandal, the James Comey, the fix was in scandal, the Fusion GPS, Hillary, DNC, Obama funded phony information Russian dossier. Do you realize this was propaganda bought and paid for. Hillary Clinton paying money, good money, for made-up stories about Donald Trump, regurgitated by the Democrats, by liberals all over the country. False information she paid for that used Russian sources that were all paid by the former, whatever he was, spy, Christopher Steele. That's all it is. Now this must be investigated. And on top of that, what you see is everything they have accused Trump of doing, they themselves are guilty of. I don't know which story is worse, Fusion GPS or the Uranium One. I'd probably argue Uranium One. Uranium One probably, I don't think so, because I've known for a long time that this FBI informant had all of this evidence. Do you realize he has firsthand experience and knowledge of Vladimir Putin back in 2009, trying to corner the market on the American uranium market? He's got emails, he's got documents, he's got tape recordings, he's got it all. And now just last week, by the way, you think any coincidence we've been hammering it was such a horrible week for Mueller last week and his corruption and his own involvement in that whole Uranium One deal, and what did he know and when did he know it, that he needed to change the narrative? Does anybody doubt that they just expedited this as quickly and as sloppily as they possibly could because they needed the media to focus on anything other than what Sean Hannity, Sarah Carter, John Solomon, and Victoria Tunsing were talking about? Oh, and I've got so much more tonight. Wait till you see. I think tonight's opening monologue will be the best we've ever done. And Robert Mueller, you may want to watch. You may be paying attention. And I'm told people in his office watch every single night. Every night they want to know what I have. Every night they're getting more nervous. Every night they hate my guts. If they could indict me tomorrow, they probably would, considering all the Clinton-Obama donors he hired to work for him. I was telling some people, I won't mention names, the names you'd know. They keep saying, no, I think Mueller wants to just wrap this up. I said, baloney. Mueller wants to wrap this up. Mueller's prize here is he wants to get Trump. Just like every other never Trumper. Well, he's a Republican. Look at all the Republicans, Ben the Sass, whatever his name, Ben the Sass Ass, whatever his name is. And John McCain. And, the snowflake himself, Jeff Flake. And the list goes on and on. They hate Mitch McConnell, hates Donald Trump. They're Republicans. Look at all the NRO guys. With a few Victor Davis Hanson and a couple of others that might have some level of objectivity left. They'd be happy in the end of the day. They so hate Trump. So when a special prosecutor now starts going after what I've been saying here, the unmasking scandal, which, we have an exclusive on this program tomorrow that this all may have been prepared back in December of last year. We got new information to share tomorrow. We'll be breaking news tomorrow, TikTok tomorrow. And James Comey. Let's a predetermined outcome before we even interview the witnesses. And then the Trump dossier, real Russian propaganda, real Russian misinformation, real Russian attempts bought and paid for by Hillary and the DNC to impact the American voters and propagandize the American voters. All byproducts of this Democratic war against Donald Trump, which showed no boundaries. And then, of course, Uranium One, where our national security was compromised, where they knew in 2009, because we now know from the informant of the FBI that, in fact, bribery, extortion, racketeering, money laundering, all happening right under their nose. That means Mueller knew. Why didn't Mueller stop it? That's Vladimir Putin trying to corner the uranium market, which is the foundational materials for nuclear weapons. Mueller was the head of the FBI. Rosenstein, it was his office in charge of the investigation. Eric Holder's Justice Department, Eric Holder signed off on the Uranium One deal. Why would anyone sign off on giving the hostile nation Russia, the hostile agent Vladimir, who's bribing, extorting, laundering money, and et cetera, to corner the market on you? Why would we ever give him 20% of our uranium? Who would ever be that stupid? And why didn't Mueller do anything about it? And why did Eric Holder sign off on it and not doing anything about it? So when you get a real special prosecutor starts looking at the real Russian scandals, the initial targets are going to be top Obama Clinton officials, not Paul Manafort, who only spent 5 months with the Trump campaign. Well, maybe it was 3 months. I don't even remember. Before, and all of this, the final transactions that they mentioned in the indictment ended in 2014. That's it. Wait, long before Trump ever ran. So you have the media now hyperventilating, going hysterical over the fact that Mueller's finally found somebody to indict after all these months. Listen to how Bloomberg News characterizes this so-called bombshell development. Quote, the indictment of Manafort and his associate Rick Gates means that this investigation is going deep into the weeds. Not deep, it's gone off into another track that has nothing to do with the campaign Trump-Russia collusion. Nothing. Anyway, it goes on. Once it's there, it could become permanently entangled with arcane bank accounts, front companies, weird names, pro-Russian Ukrainians, and even more unpronounceable names. The problem with the Manafort route for the anti-Trump crowd is that it may be extremely difficult to craft a clear, publicly digestible narrative of collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign, because they're looking for a year and they absolutely have nothing to show for it. And if they did, it wouldn't be Manafort that was indicted on something that he did money-wise in 2006. That's how absurd this whole thing has gotten. And then you've got a little bit of tidbit of information. The media is suddenly covering this like, this guy, George Papadopoulos, was, President Trump's John Dean. Okay, George Papadopoulos wanted to approach the Russians. He wanted to do what Hillary and the Democrats did, pay for Russian dirt on Hillary. He wanted to do that. I never heard of the guy till today. I have no idea who this Papadopoulos guy is. No idea. And I knew everybody in the campaign. Anybody that mattered. Anyway, but his plan was rejected. Guess who rejected it? Paul Manafort rejected it. Daily News reporting that Papadopoulos was a volunteer with the campaign. A volunteer. Volunteers stuff envelopes. They're not part of strategy. Anyway, emails supposedly show the co-campaign chairman, Sam Clovis, advisor of retired Admiral Charles Kubik, and the campaign manager, Paul Manafort, all voiced opposition to Papadopoulos' pushes in April and May, citing reasons such as needing to meet with NATO allies. And Papadopoulos sent Manafort the possibility of meeting Russia officials through the Kremlin-backed International Affairs Council, though the campaign chairman put the kibosh, meaning Manafort, on the whole idea. We need someone to communicate that Donald Trump is not doing these trips. Quote, Paul Manafort told his business partner, Rick Gates, who was an account of his spokesman, according to the Daily News. Oh, so he did the opposite of what Hillary and others did. So this is going, the big crisis in this country is, do we have equal justice under the law? Is there one set of justice for the Clintons and their cronies and their shenanigans and another for everybody else? Because we have incontrovertible evidence that Hillary and Bill Clinton sold out America's national security interests. We're only beginning this investigation, and we're so far ahead in terms of evidence. We have incontrovertible evidence, documents that FBI informants, emails, tapes, government informant, that Eric Holder, Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein all knew what Putin was doing. And there is a strong belief that Obama knew of Putin's crimes in America in his presidential daily briefing. What did he know? When did he know it? What did Mueller know? When did he know? How is he in any way objective to anything with Russia when he didn't stop what was literally a spy invasion of our country, and a successful one because he didn't act? All these people knew in 2009 of bribes, extortion, kickbacks, money laundering, racketeering. They didn't stop it. We have incontrovertible evidence. They all tried to cover it up by putting a gag order, a non-disclosure agreement on the FBI informant that had all this evidence. We have incontrovertible evidence that the Clintons benefited financially in a massive way on the Uranium One deal. Double speaking fees, Clinton Foundation, kickbacks to their foundation from all the people involved in the deal. Incontrovertible evidence that Putin and his spies and thugs were successful because the very people now involved in this investigation, and as a result of all his crimes, they won. Putin won. Putin beat us, even though we knew that his agents were here committing crimes. And he now has control of 20% of our uranium. We also have the fact that in spite of Hillary and Holder and Mueller and Rosenstein and others, they did nothing to protect our national security. We have evidence now major crimes were being committed by Putin and his thugs, and they did nothing. We have incontrovertible evidence the Clintons and the DNC, and now Obama used Fusion GPS to hire a former intelligence agent that paid Russians to produce a phony dossier that was full of disinformation, propaganda, misinformation against Donald Trump, that they tried to use Russian information and lies to hijack and steal an election by spreading the Russian lies that they paid for. And we have Mueller and his band of big Democratic donors supposedly investigating Trump-Russian collusion. I predicted there's no evidence. I knew there'd be no evidence today of collusion. There hasn't been, and there still is none. The media would have you believe otherwise. But Manafort's indictment has zero, nothing, zip. Rick Gates' indictment, nothing, zero, zip to do with it. George Papadopoulos, low-level volunteer, lied to the FBI. He tried to get everybody in the campaign to listen to him. That didn't happen either. And the evidence that they're using for Paul Manafort as it relates to all of these so-called crimes and indictments, that's all money dealings from 2006, and the last payment was made in 2014. You understand? We're at a crossroads as a country because there's a massive amount of evidence on one side, and then you've got Robert Mueller hiring every Obama Clinton donor he could find. Not one Trump Republican donor to the Mueller investigative team. And how he's not recused himself or stepped down is beyond any comprehension I have. And there's a report, Hillary met this weekend. Who did she meet with? Tony Podesta. Oh, that's great. Tony Podesta now stepped down from his lobbying firm because of the investigation by special counsel Mueller. Oh, John Podesta's brother. Oh, this is interesting. Has nothing to do with Russiagate. But there are real evidence, real crimes. This is a diversion. Wall Street Journal on Friday called for Mueller's resignation and rightly accused the Clinton campaign and the DNC of collusion with Russia. We're getting the story right, and we have from the get-go. Everybody else is getting it wrong. And we're not going to stop hammering this in any way, shape, manner, or form. We'll do what the mainstream media won't. All right, when we come back, Jay Sekulow, who's the attorney for the president, Victoria Tunsing, the attorney for the FBI informant, Sarah Carter's been breaking all of this wide open. Also, we have David Limbaugh, Greg Jarrett, and Laura Ingraham coming in, and we'll get to your calls. All right, quick break. Right back. We'll continue. An amazing show we have today, and tonight at 9. Don't miss our opening monologue. We'll continue. Well, this is telling because, let's see, Hillary Clinton met with Sid Vicious Blumenthal and John Podesta this weekend. Why is she hanging out with Sid Vicious Blumenthal and Tony Podesta this weekend? Daily Caller reporting. All right, when we come back, Jay Sekulow, attorney for the president, Victoria Tunsing, attorney for the FBI informant, Sarah Carter, David Limbaugh, Greg Jarrett, Laura Ingraham, all coming up. Busy news day. Stay with us.
Today's announcement has nothing to do with the president, has nothing to do with the president's campaign or campaign activity. The real collusion scandal, as we've said several times before, has everything to do with the Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS, and Russia. There's clear evidence of the Clinton campaign colluding with Russian intelligence to spread disinformation and smear the president to influence the election. We've been saying from day one there's been no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, and nothing in the indictment today changes.
It is specifically about the campaign.
It has nothing to do with the activities of the campaign. It has to do with his failure to tell the truth. That doesn't have anything to do with the campaign or the campaign's activities.
But it is the clearest evidence yet of ties between the Trump campaign and Russian officials. So.
Again, there are no activities or official capacity in which the Trump campaign was engaged in any of these activities. Most of them took place well before the campaign ever even existed.
It's all about leverage. They're going after Manafort on something that apparently has nothing to do with Trump. Years ago, his own business.
Tax fraud.
Yeah. Yeah, but what they're saying to him is, we got you now, and we don't care about that. But if you can tell us something about Trump and the campaign and collusion, we'll give you a get-out-of-jail card free. So it's all about leverage. That's the way prosecutors work.
And Gates lasted a little bit longer, a longtime protege with the same international contacts. And after Manafort was jettisoned, he stayed. Then he went to a super PAC, and then they told him to leave the super PAC. One thing is, the Trump people did move quick to get rid of Manafort as soon as these Eastern European ties came up.
Sure, and that will help Trump distance himself. But Manafort knows where the bodies are buried. He was an intimate. And if anything happened wrong in the campaign, and there's no evidence that anything did, Manafort would know about it. Even if he wasn't directly there, he'd heard about it. Sure. And so this is an important event for Mueller to try to get leverage over this intimate. You know, the first rule in American crime is if you're going to commit a crime, commit it with somebody more important than you are. So you can turn them in. They can't turn you in. Right. And that's what's going to happen. Now, you know, there may be a deal in the works. He may be trying to make a deal with the prosecution. He may be dangling the information so that he wants Trump to pardon him. I don't think Trump's going to pardon him. I think politically that would be. Could, of course. Politically, that would be difficult. Legally, constitutionally, there'd be no problem in doing it. But Manafort now is the first domino. And what Mueller wants to do is see him as the first domino, the second domino, the third domino, ultimately trying to get to the big domino, that is President Trump.
I can't disagree with one thing that Alan Dershowitz said there. Hour 2, Sean Hannity Show, 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number, not the least of which this indictment of Paul Manafort and others, nothing to do with the president, nothing to do with his campaign, nothing to do with his campaign activity, nothing. And yet we have crimes we know that have been committed. We know there was collusion with Fusion GPS and Hillary's campaign. Hillary's campaign and the DNC paid for it, and apparently Obama contributed. And then, of course, Uranium One. They knew in 2009 of bribery, extortion, money laundering, kickbacks, and all sorts of other racketeering. And Mueller knew. And let's see, who else? Oh, Eric Holder knew. Maybe the president knew through the presidential daily briefings. And still, Vladimir was able, through his agents, to infiltrate and successfully take over 20% of America's uranium market, which, of course, means that America's national security was compromised. And I didn't even mention the increased speaking fees for Bill Clinton, the sign-off of Eric Holder and Hillary Clinton, and the $145 million kickback to the Clinton Foundation. That's collusion. That's trouble. That's a crime. Now, the big question we have this day is there equal justice under the law? Joining us now, Jay Sekulow, Chief Counsel, American Center for Law and Justice, Counsel to the President, and also Victoria Tunsing of DeGeneva Tunsing, who is herself now representing the FBI informant as it relates to the Uranium One case. Sarah Carter has been at the forefront of breaking all of these investigative reports about real collusion and real wrongdoing and compromising national security. Welcome, all of you. Jay Sekulow, I'll throw it to you. Your thoughts on this Manafort indictment and what it says and doesn't say. I actually agree with Alan Dershowitz. This is all designed on a separate issue to get Paul Manafort to say something about the president.
Well, let me say what it does. Okay, so this is not any great shock that Paul Manafort was a subject of an indictment. We've been expecting this for 2 or 3 months now. Remember, they had that pre-dawn. So it's not surprising there that they did it. What is interesting, I think what's important for my client, for the president, is that the indictment itself is based on activities, events that are not related to the campaign and are not involving campaign activity. In fact, it goes back to 2006 involving, I mean, these are serious charges, obviously, when you're talking about money laundering, failure to register, tax crimes, but none of these are involving campaign or campaign activities. If they're trying to, quote, put pressure on Paul Manafort, I'm sure they've been trying to do that a while. That's just the nature of the way prosecutors work. They ended up now making an indictment. But I'm not concerned about where that goes, Sean. Again, Paul Manafort's engagement with the campaign for that about 3 months that he was engaged, he did his job. We don't know of anything that was done inappropriately by him as it relates to the campaign. I can't speak to his businesses or his business activity, and that's it. And on the George Papadopoulos guilty plea there, what I'm trying to point out to some media here is that you notice what they didn't charge. The fact that he was having a meeting with someone from Russia, a professor, that wasn't what they charged him with as violating a law, because it did not. What they charged him with as far as the legal violation,
lying to the FBI,
was lying to the FBI agent. And that, of course, is 18 U.S.C. 1000. 2001. Victoria certainly can speak to that. She knows the area, has defended those cases and brought those cases, and that's a whole different ballgame. You don't go into an agent lying.
Victoria, let me go to you because you're representing the FBI informant, and you're watching all of this unfold here, and you know what your client has in terms of evidence, and Sarah and others have broken the story about bribery, extortion, money laundering, racketeering, etc., and you think of what they're doing here. We have evidence between Fusion GPS and Uranium One that, to me, seems like real significant Russia collusion with the Hillary Clinton campaign. That's not even being investigated fully. There's no special prosecutor on that.
Sean, Bill Clinton met with Putin, and he asked to meet with people in the energy field, the nuclear energy field, when he was in Russia getting his $500,000 in his back pocket. Now, interesting about this Papadopoulos charging instrument. I think he's pleaded guilty. It's not an indictment. It's a complaint. But in it, I'm going to say George because I can't say that long name real well.
Papadopoulos. We got it. Papadopoulos. Yeah.
I can say it once, but I'm not going to keep repeating it. George was banging on the campaign. Hey, I got this deal. He kept sending emails. Did the campaign say yes, let's do it? No, the campaign ignored him. He was a side guy. He was, after his initial being put on this committee, he was really somebody that wasn't part of anything in the campaign. He was a bystander. But if there was a collusion going on, why is he trying to get people to have a meeting? Why is he having to keep saying, hey, I got this, I got that? And the campaign never gets back to him.
That's so well said.
Right.
Sarah, let's get your take overall on all of this, especially in light of all the investigative reporting you've done about real, clear, actual crimes committed, which I actually now believe are all going to come out in the near future.
Yeah, with Victoria and Jay both, I have to say they brought up such important points. And Victoria brought up a point here. I mean, even though George Papadopoulos was, pushing out these emails, nobody from the campaign apparently bit or took the hook on them. And he basically, I mean, if you're looking at the criminal complaint, it was about lying to the FBI. It wasn't because he met with this guy. But if you look at Fusion GPS, Sean, if you look at those connections with Fusion GPS and the fact that the DNC and the Hillary campaign had money going in to the attorneys through Fusion GPS, paying Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele then, in effect, allegedly paying the Russians, the FSB agents, for information on Donald Trump, which was, by and large part, according to everyone that I've spoken to, disinformation. There is a direct line right there. And I think that there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. The first and foremost, and I don't know if Jay agrees with me on this or Victoria, but is what did the FBI know? What type of evidence did the FBI lay out to get these FISA warrants, to continue these investigations? Was it this dossier? And by the way, the meeting with Don Jr., with Natalia Veselnitskaya, who, by the way, was connected to Fusion GPS, which was lobbying on behalf of the Russian government. I mean, those are very serious issues. And I think if you connect the dots here, I mean, it looks like the Russians.
Well, let's talk legally then about that. If in fact the phony Russian dossier paid for by Hillary, the DNC, and now maybe even Obama contributed, and that was what was used for any type of warrant, Jay Sekulow, would any of that be admissible?
Well, it's the fruit of the poisonous tree. I mean, if the basis upon which a FISA warrant was obtained was not evidence that would either be admissible or wasn't valid, it raises a very serious legal issue as to then the result of that warrant. So when they went in and got the FISA warrant, and if it was based on that dossier, which proves to be not only salacious and unverified, but now a political opposition research, I think the FBI is in a very difficult position, which means the Department of Justice defending it's going to have a tough time.
I mean, you look at the accusations in it, as somebody said, it read like a third grade tawdry novel.
Yep.
How could they look at something like this and think it was even serious? And I never heard of the FBI paying someone else to do their investigation. I've heard of the FBI paying people for information, but not to go out and be the investigator. I mean, they're the premier investigators. Sean, I want to point out one thing, if I may, and that's a footnote in George's complaint. And it says when George was banging on people to meet with him, and one of the people in the campaign that he sent the email to sent a campaign sent an email on to somebody else higher up and said, and not back to George. Let's discuss. We need someone to communicate that DT is not doing these trips, meaning Donald Trump. It should be someone low level in the campaign so as not to send any signal. So I disagree with Alan Dershowitz on this basis. I don't think there's any more dominoes.
You think this is basically it? What about General Flynn?
Well, but that's not even in this.
That's true. It has nothing to. By the way, is this investigative creep because it's supposed to be about Trump-Russia collusion and has nothing to do with it?
I don't think that there's anything here to do with it, and I think that it was investigation creep, and I think that as soon as they start investigating the other side of things, we're going to see a lot more connection, possibly regarding the DNC, the Hillary Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS, but the FBI.
Is it going to be Mueller, and how could it possibly be Mueller if Mueller was the FBI director when they had all this evidence of bribery, extortion, money laundering, et cetera? I mean, that would seem like a major.
It cannot be Mueller.
It cannot be. I would argue. I agree with you. All right, quick break. We'll come back. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. Sarah Carter, Jay Sekulow, Victoria Tunsing. We'll have full coverage of this. Probably one of the most important monologues I'm doing tonight for the history of this country. 9 Eastern on Fox. We'll continue more with our panel straight ahead. All right, as we continue, Jay Sekulow and Sarah Carter, Victoria Tunsing, all with us. Jay, where is this now headed? As you read the 31-page complaint indictment, as you look at the media now spinning this as if somehow this proves Trump-Russia collusion when it has nothing to do with it, where does this go from here?
Well, it points out two things. One is you look at the main indictment that's come down today against Paul Manafort, and there's, as I said, not only is there no evidence or allegation of collusion, the indictment has nothing to do with the campaign or campaign activity. Nothing. I mean, there's money laundering on deals from a decade ago, and then up through, I guess, until he stopped doing them. So that it's completely irrelevant. And then if you look at the Papadopoulos plea, you notice what's not charged as a crime. The meeting he was allegedly going to have with some professor that was in Russia to get information, which again, opposition research is it's called now. And the fact is, he's not charged with doing that because that's not a crime. It was the lying to the FBI agent. I think this proves the point that this is moving forward expeditiously, and I am optimistic that we get this wrapped up as to the president, because I think you saw one of the major player, probably the major target of this whole thing, with Paul Manafort. You saw the indictment today, and there's no allegations regarding the campaign or the president.
Your take, Victoria.
In fact, the most recent date of any of the money transfers that is listed in the indictment is 2014. I mean, 2 years before he even started working with the campaign. So, and what they cleverly did is that they extended the date into 2016, 2017, because Manafort kept lying on documents that he was signing at the time. But all of the transfers were completed in 2014. So it had nothing whatsoever to do with the Trump campaign or Russia.
Sarah, let's go to Uranium One and its future and Fusion GPS and its future in light. If this is all they've got here, if we have equal justice under the law, doesn't that mean all of the evidence that you have been uncovering now becomes front and center?
Yeah, I think so, Sean. And I think what needs to happen, and this is according to a number of sources that I've spoken with, it needs to move forward with either a special counsel investigation, and it needs to be outside of the purview of Mueller and Rosenstein. So those are the two big issues right there, and also answers. I mean, I know that the Senate Judiciary Committee wants answers, and it goes straight to the informant, right? This former FBI informant, it has information that he needs to deliver to the Hill and to the Senate, and that information must be allowed to be made public, and people have to know what happened so that the tools of justice can be used equally. I mean, if you're looking at Trump and you're following this rabbit hole and this expansive special counsel, then the same apply when you're looking at the Uranium One deal, the passage of the CFIUS, all of the events that took place with this former FBI confidential informant, and I think Victoria would agree with me on that.
All right, Victoria, last word. We got to go.
Well, I think the real Russian investigation is yet to occur. It will not include Trump people.
Wow, that's a powerful statement, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the media may have a short moment here, but this is not what they thought they were getting, and it's not what we were told, and what we were told the investigation was even about. Thank you both. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of this extravaganza. We'll get to your calls coming up next. We got David
Fox News Channel.
25 now till the top of the hour. That was the promo. Apparently there's rumors that it actually may happen tonight. The Ingram angle will be following Hannity on the Fox News Channel. Laura Ingram making her debut tonight. We don't want to miss this program. And with a lot of news out there, she has a best-selling book across the country she just released a week or so ago, Billionaire at the Barricades, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. And are you really coming to work tonight? Because you signed this deal like 2 months ago. What's going on? What's the real truth? Is this just a game that Fox is playing with everybody? You're actually going to show up?
I have a question, Sean. Once you finish your show and before you get ready for your next show, could you help me write my monologue? I'm working on, I have some hand puppets, and one is the establishment. One puppet represents you, and the other is the populace.
You are not doing that.
We'll just have it just for a couple of segments, and then
a couple of segments. You're going to use puppets on the show. There's a formula for success that's never been tried before.
Yeah, and then somewhere along the line we'll fit in General Kelly, who we're also talking to.
So I'm listening to you in your promo. Is General Kelly on tonight?
Yeah, he's our exclusive guest tonight.
Awesome. Well, you talk about the heartland and the working class, and I'm like, what am I? Chopped liver? I mean, that's me. I mean, in that sense, you and I have a lot in common.
Yeah, we come from humble beginnings, which made us hungry, frankly, and made us appreciate what we've earned. And I never left that behind. I mean, I carry my mother with me and her hard work ethic and her love of country. I think about her all the time. She died many years ago, back in 1999. But she was just one of those scrappers. She was like a working class waitress. Didn't put up with a lot of guff, a straight talker, very street smart, even though she didn't get to go to college or anything. And she didn't like phony. She didn't like politicians who were phony. She was obviously a big fan of Reagan. She was a volunteer in the Goldwater campaign all those years ago, Sean. And so she really kind of gave me my sense of who I am. And I think I owe it really to my mother. Just like this ethic I developed and made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we'll make a lot more. But I'm really blessed, and I feel really grateful to be following you on Fox. And it's been a long time coming, and I think it came just at the right time.
Everybody has their own thing, their own identity. I mean, I know they like to say, well, they bunch all of us in radio into one group, but they're not listening, and they don't really care to listen or actually learn on their own. But, Rush has his own separate identity and does his show his way, and Mark does it his way, and you do it your way, and I do it my way, and the same on TV with Tucker, et cetera, my show. How do you differentiate yourself, even though we may have you and I in particular, I think, have a lot of agreement on issues?
Yeah, I think that for me, especially kind of at the end of the night, we're going to do politics and the rest of life. So how politics affects the family, parenting, education, how we deal with the screen-obsessed society, and what's government's role in all of this, if there's a role at all. I'm going to talk about what the meaning of America is tonight on the show. General Kelly talked a lot about sacrifice and how there's just a very thin layer of Americans who sacrifice as the military sacrifices. And how do we really appreciate what service is if we ourselves don't know anyone in the service? And those ideas, those kind of big ideas, we're gonna really explore in depth. And also we have to remember that it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like things get fixed, and we should all be a lot happier with the way government goes. But we have a lot of work to do before we get there. So it's kind of politics and everything else. It's a big bouillabaisse, a big mix of issues and perspectives and every now and then, just like you and I do, and we're on the show together, every now and then you just need a belly laugh, let's face it.
I think the belly laugh is going to be me handing off to you and you actually showing up. I think people will be shocked.
Are you? Wait a second, Sean. Are you going to hand me a margarita tonight through that double boxes? I want salt rocks.
Salt rocks margarita. That's for 11 o'clock at night when you get off work. Also, Shannon Bream is starting her new show tonight. I guess I think I'm like the only person besides Martha that's left in New York now. This is Fox is now a DC-based network at this point.
I'm coming up there. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna do the show from up there. They claim that the graphics actually move from studio to studio. Isn't that amazing with technology today?
No, listen, I use different studios all the time, and nobody would know the difference. But I mostly am locked into my one studio in New York. What do you make of the Manafort indictment today? I mean, I'm reading 31 pages, and I'm like, okay, tell me where's the Russia stuff. I'm looking at financial information from 2006 and transfers that ended in 2014. And I'm looking at one guy that wanted desperately to get somebody's attention in the campaign, this guy, George Papadopoulos, and he got nobody's attention, and he only got, this plea deal on the FBI lying. And I'm thinking, okay, where's Uranium One? Where is Fusion GPS, the real collusion that we have been reporting?
Oh, I'm sure they're getting to that. Don't worry. Oh, look, the 31 pages is, this is classic white-collar indictment. I used to practice white-collar criminal defense law, and so whether it's false statements, 1001 statute, or conspiracy or money laundering, tax fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, this is all the classic throw all the charges into one big pot and stir it up. I mean, that's what they're doing with Manafort and his associate, Mr. Gates. Now, I don't know what Manafort did all those years ago. I don't know what these clients he represents, but the idea that this somehow redounds to the conclusion of Russia manipulating the election to help Donald Trump is just ludicrous on its face. And Papadopoulos is a minor figure who made the mistake of allegedly lying to the FBI. Well, I guess he pled to that. I mean, that's just really stupid for him. Like, I don't know why he did that. I don't know why he quote forgot to mention his meeting with that Russian person. But I mean, again, there's no there. This is just millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money, dozens of attorneys, some of them connected to the Clinton campaign, loyal to Hillary Clinton, and Bob Mueller, who, of course, presided as FBI director during one of these other scandals that you just mentioned. So, I think this whole special prosecutor statute is probably unconstitutional. It's just this roving band of unaccountable lawyers who, if they want to indict somebody, they can probably indict somebody in a group of people. They can find one person they can indict on something. I mean, that's
well, I mean, and a lot of people don't. Budget. I think that's such a good point. I mean, you can indict a ham sandwich. I mean, this is, as I understand it, this was put in a grand jury where Donald Trump got 4% of the vote. And, on top of that, I mean, the defense never gets an opportunity to present a thing to the grand jury. The standard is probable cause, which is way, way below the legal standard to get a guilty verdict. So all of that is going to come into play. Paul Manafort saying, absolutely, hell no, I didn't do it. And he deserves the presumption of innocent like everybody else. But I think the thing that stands out the most to me is it's not the president. It's not the campaign. It has nothing to do with campaign activity. And we have evidence of real crimes as it relates to real Russian collusion with Fusion GPS, funded by Hillary, by the DNC, and now maybe by Obama. And they use false misinformation and propaganda to alter a presidential election. And that was all information that came from Russia. And I haven't even mentioned Uranium One.
All right. Well, I'd like to see a real honest investigation into potential false statements by Clinton campaign officials about the origin of this dossier, about who paid for the dossier. I mean, we need the bank records. Okay, you find the reason they were able to charge Manafort is that they got his bank records. They subpoenaed the bank records, and they showed probable cause. They got the bank records, and they got the wire transfer records, and so they were able to indict him. Now, where are the bank records for Fusion GPS? Who paid for what one? Exactly who knew? Who authorized? Those are all really apt questions, and I would assume that we get answers to those. But I don't think Bob Mueller is the person to be doing any of this investigation. I think we need a special counsel to investigate the special counsel, perhaps.
What do you make of Tony Podesta, founder of the Podesta Group, stepping down from the firm that bears him and John Podesta's name after coming under investigation by Mueller, and to fight Mueller's investigation? I mean, obviously, this has now taken on a whole different turn than its original purpose, which was Trump-Russia collusion.
Yeah, well, I think you're going to have a hard time getting hired by people as a political consultant if it turns out that you end up being at the center of a firestorm involving your previous client. And I'm sure he has investors in his group, and they probably didn't like the fact that he was at the center of this either. I mean, people do want to make money at some point, and so I don't think any of this helped. It reminds me of Weinstein stepping down from his group. You know, it's just, there's a cloud of suspicion. Whether or not he did anything, I don't know, but there's a cloud of suspicion, and people want him to move on, and, you know, he should move on.
What do you make of this battle between the GOP establishment and, say, those of us that support the president, believe that his agenda represents very similar to Reagan? This is a predicate in your book and a point that you make in your book, because I agree with you. I can't think of any one single program or policy or idea that Trump is espousing that doesn't in some way reflect the values of Reagan, with maybe the exception of trade.
Well, even on trade, Reagan slapped those tariffs on Japanese motorcycle imports and saved Harley-Davidson, and he was derided by the Cato Institute back in 1988 in a long article trashing Reagan as the great protectionist. So Reagan understood that trade had to be, you know, done smartly and for the benefit of the American people, American worker. But on the larger issue, Sean, here what's happening, and I'm going to talk about this tonight in the open of the show. The reason there's all this gnashing of teeth and wailing by the left and by the never Trumpers, you know, the neoconservative globalist Republicans, is they're losing power. They're losing ground. And it's not fun to lose power. I remember what it felt like in 1992 when Bill Clinton won, and I remember what it felt like in 2008 when Barack Obama won, and then in 2012. I mean, when you lose power, it doesn't feel good. But this is a natural interplay that happens in a representative democracy. They went way too far. They pushed policies that the people didn't want for far too long, and people are sick of it. They want real change, and they want the government to work for them. And that's why Trump was elected. They want someone who's going to shake it up, dust it off, and put in a new set of policies to advance our interests and our liberty, our life, our pursuit of happiness.
Laura Ingraham is with us. She starts a new program tonight at 10 following mine on the Fox News Channel. Are you going to put on makeup for television and everything like I have to do?
No, I'm doing the open in a Nancy Pelosi costume actually for Halloween. So
that's right. Halloween is coming.
Yeah, and I'm going to be clutching a gavel because.
By the way, Halloween is one of the worst. You know what we're teaching our kids with Halloween? To bang on people's. Well, no, you're teaching children to bang on people's door and beg for free stuff.
Right. Well,
it's a liberal holiday.
Did you, when you were?
By the way, I say this stuff, and you know what happened? I said this like years ago, and liberals write, Hannity says Halloween's liberal because we're teaching kids to beg for free stuff. He's so sick. I'm like, they're so humorless.
They have no sense of humor. Hey, Sean, do you remember when we were kids, like, you just went as a bum or whatever? Well, I was always a bum. I just rubbed my
I was a bum every year. That's all I did.
Yeah,
I used to take cork, and I'd put it on fire and then put the chalk on my face,
Yeah, and you look like kind of like you rolled out of the construction site you used to work on. That's a good thing.
Pretty much, yeah. Now you got to get a mask of Hillary or Donald Trump.
Oh no! Now it costs $100 to outfit a kid in a stupid Halloween costume.
I know. The Ingram Angle tonight at 10, right after Hannity on the Fox News Channel. You really showing up, or is this a total lie?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see what I'm going to get, like free stuff from you through the double boxes. If it's good, I'm going to show up. If it's
man,
lame like fizzy water, I'm not going to show up. Don't give me some like healthy juice or something to keep me going at 10 o'clock.
Oh, now she's whining about her hour. So first night on the job, she's complaining about being on late. I can't believe it. I've been there 23 years and I'm not complaining. All right.
Hey, Sean, what did you? I need to go take a nap, so I got to go.
Oh my God! God help us. All right, Ingram Angle tonight at 10 after Hannity on Fox News. All right, we got time for a quick call here as we say hi to Levi is in Pensacola. What's up, Levi?
Hey, Sean, how are you doing?
I'm good, sir. What's on your mind?
Good. Yeah, so I'm a millennial, and I'm used to, getting a bunch of friends together and going to the movies. And honestly, I haven't gone in months because we are all sick and tired of all of the BS that they're pumping out. And obviously the box office is showing it. And honestly, I'm super stoked to go see your movie. I looked it up online, and there's one theater in the city that's showing us. So,
well, we're going to be adding theaters by the end. This movie was so successful. Do you understand? We only had 14% of the screens of every other competitor this weekend. We only had 373. We're in the top 10, and every other movie had over 2,000. Do you realize that we made only $900,000 less than George Clooney's movie? He had 2,476 theaters, and we had 373. It is one of the biggest breakout hits. The response has been phenomenal. Levi's, just hang on till Thursday of this week. We have our new list of theaters we're going in, and the response has been phenomenal. And I've never been more proud.
and you're competing against movies that have multi-million dollar, hundreds of million dollars of budget. And
we had to do.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you what's in theaters right now, and I don't care because that's how sick and tired I am of it.
Everybody has the notes I've gotten have been inspiring, and that's what I did. That's the only reason I did this movie, and the feedback has been phenomenal. The testimonials phenomenal, and I'm very proud of it. And we're going to now. All the studios shunned us. Now they're coming knocking, which is and you made that possible, not me, by showing up this weekend. We'll continue.
Today, we find out in the Washington Post that this dossier was in fact paid for by the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign. And in fact, this former British intelligence agent, while there was some research being done and funded by one of President Trump's Republican rivals, that once the British intelligence agent was hired, that in fact that was funded by the DNC and the Clinton campaign. Now, I know this was before your watch, but presumably you must have some curiosity about how this came about and what this dossier said and, why you guys didn't kind of come forward and acknowledge earlier that you had funded it.
I find this issue somewhat curious because here's a news flash. Candidates conduct research on their opponents. And in the case of Donald Trump, the imperative for that is to not do that is political malpractice. Why? Because Donald Trump refused to release so many documents. Here's what we know, though. The Russians hacked the DNC. They hacked it with the purpose of helping Donald Trump out. They didn't hack the RNC because they wanted Hillary Clinton to lose and Donald Trump to win. There have been incredible, questionable, possibly criminal engagement between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians during the election. All of those things occurred. And the Democratic Party, or anyone, and the Republicans, as you correctly pointed out, were doing the research on Trump before the Democrats did. We would be committing malpractice if we weren't to do that, because Donald Trump has a very shady and complicated history in Russia. And so I'm glad that this research was being conducted, and the research centers around whether the Trump administration and the Russians conspired to steal an election. That's serious stuff, my friends. And you know what? There's a criminal investigation. And I used to be a prosecutor, Karen, and I got information from a number of sources when I would do an investigation. And this is a very professional team there. And they will take a look at all of the information. But, the real issue here is whether Donald Trump's campaign, and perhaps himself, was in cahoots with the Russians to affect and impact our election.
So the DNC had this information before the election, but decided not to go forward with what was in the dossier. Is that because...
Could you... I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
First of all, did the DNC actually know what... They paid the lawyer who commissioned the dossier. Did the DNC know what was in it?
Well, again, you're going to have to ask folks who were at the DNC at that time.
Asked.
Well, no, I learned about the dossier a few days ago, okay?
Is that, how is that possible?
Well, because you hire a lawyer, and we hire lawyers all the time who hire third-party vendors to do their work. And so we knew that we were paying for opposition research at the DNC, but we didn't ask questions about who they're hiring in the context of doing their research. And what we know is that Donald Trump, we had very strong reason to believe that Donald Trump and the Donald Trump campaign and the Russians were potentially conspiring to affect the election for the President of the United States. That's the issue here.
When did you learn the DNC and the Clinton campaign were behind the dossier?
I wasn't aware of the arrangement at all.
And then how could you have led the DNC and be in the dark about the dossier?
I wasn't aware of the arrangement at all.
All right, News Roundup Information Overload. So there you have Tom Perez regarding the Christopher Steele phony Russian dossier saying, well, it would have been political malpractice not to do research. The research they got was paid for, bought and paid for by Russia to influence our elections, and it was false. And Russia hacked the DNC. There's no evidence that they hacked the DNC. Nobody has proved it. And the one guy that released it said that didn't happen. That's Julian Assange. I learned about the dossier a few days ago. Yeah, okay, now we know there's $12 million paid by the Clinton campaign and the DNC, and even Obama put $1 million into this whole thing. And Wasserman Schultz, I wasn't aware of any arrangement between the DNC and Hillary campaign with the Steele dossier. Oh, but it only came out of their pockets. As I have been saying from the get-go with the Paul Manafort indictment and this other indictment, I just keep saying, do we have equal justice under the law here in this country? In other words, knowing that we had evidence in 2009 about bribery, extortion, money laundering, and racketeering and other crimes, everybody knew. That means Mueller knew as the FBI director. Eric Holder knew as the head of the Department of Justice. It's likely in the presidential daily briefing that took place. It's likely that everybody, and in spite of knowing that Vladimir Putin and Russia were in America with their spies for the very purpose of cornering the uranium market and not doing anything to stop it. And this whole thing starts out, well, this is about Trump-Russia collusion. And the only thing they've got is nothing to do with Trump-Russia collusion. But years ago, long before Robert Mueller was ever, long before Paul Manafort was ever with the Trump campaign, this has to do with financial issues involving Ukraine and other places. Nothing to do with Russian collusion, which was his task. Anyway, we have two attorneys now to go through and analyze all of this. We've got Greg Jarrett, he's with the Fox News Channel. David Limbaugh, best-selling author and columnist. Welcome both of you to the program. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be here. Hey, Sean. Greg, thank you.
David, I think the big takeaway from the Manafort indictment is it has nothing to do with Russia. Nothing. Zero. Zip.
Yeah, the mainstream media and the Democrats have smugly been promising collusion between Trump and Russia from the very beginning. They've been able to produce nothing with all these congressional investigations, with all the special prosecutor stuff. Now we finally have an indictment. It has to do with alleged corruption of Manafort, which preceded his involvement with Trump and which everybody acknowledges has nothing to do with any kind of collusion with Trump. So I'm not faulting Mueller for finding collateral things to pursue, like Ken Starr might have. I mean, that's another issue we can talk about. But the fact remains, our eyes on the big ball. This has not moved the Democrat and mainstream media's case toward Trump and Russia collusion one molecule.
Greg?
Over the weekend as I was watching, the cable channels, the mainstream media, they were giddy with delight upon learning that there would be an indictment on Monday morning. And so all weekend long, it was like a 2-day-long tailgate party. Well, it turns out it was entirely premature. The indictment comes out, 31 pages. No mention of Trump or Russia or so-called collusion. And, the media was kind of dejected as a kid who wakes up on Christmas morning with no presents under the tree. But then they learned about George Papadopoulos pleading guilty to a single charge of, making a false statement to the FBI. And they thought, surely this is evidence of collusion. Well, guess what? It's not. He wasn't charged with any underlying offense, so-called collusion, because, as you know, Sean, no such crime exists in American statutory law except antitrust matters. It has no application to elections and political campaigns. But try to explain that to the thick-headed mainstream media.
No, they have an abusively biased agenda. But there is evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, and it's in two forms. One, it's obvious that they paid for a Christopher Steele dossier that made wild, salacious allegations against Donald Trump in Russia with hookers in the Ritz. They're urinating on his bed. And now, in spite of denials for a year, we find out Hillary's campaign, the DNC, and it looks like maybe even Obama helped pay for all of this. And that was false information derived and paid for from Russia for the very purpose of altering and impacting our election. Secondly, David Limbaugh, were crimes not committed when we look at the fact that in 2009, we know that Putin and Russia wants to corner the uranium market. And in spite of all the bribery, all the crimes, everything that we knew that had happened, they ended up not paying attention to it and allow 20% of our uranium to go to Putin and Russia, and then there's massive kickbacks here. That, to me, is corruption. Why isn't that being investigated to the level that this, we've spent a year on Trump-Russia collusion with no evidence?
Sean, you're exactly right. For so long, the Democrats were advocating that we reset with Russia. The Republicans are too mean, that Romney was terrible to the Russians. And then it turns out they try to say that Trump was in bed with the Russians, and they somehow changed their substance position. Like, that's so terrible. Now, is Russia bad or good? But the whole time now that these false allegations of Trump-Russia collusion were being promoted, the Democrats were specifically colluding. And whether you want to talk about them doing anything criminal, that's one issue. But they were definitely colluding under the definition of that term in the dictionary, in the English language. Russia, Hillary Clinton. And here's a point I want to make about the Russians' Hillary scandal. Just the uranium one, the compromise of our national security by itself, with no evidence of Clinton money being involved and Clinton coffers being enhanced, is scary and alarming. Separately, the payment to Clintons of these exorbitant monies, even without evidence of connection to the uranium scandal, is alarming. But then when you put the two together, it's combustible, and it is amazing to me something more hasn't yet surfaced. I'm not giving up yet on Mueller's investigation on this. It could well end up going in that direction. And all that.
I don't see that. All right, Greg, we'll get your take on that when we continue. 800-941-SEAN. Greg Jarrett, David Limbaugh. If you want to be a part of the program, quick break, an amazing Hannity tonight at 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel. We'll continue. All right, as we continue, Sean Hannity Show, toll free. Our telephone number is 800-941-SEAN. If you want to be a part of this extravaganza, we're talking with attorneys David Limbaugh and Greg Jarrett from the Fox News Channel. Greg, I'll ask you about the Uranium One deal, and more specifically, now that we know, under no circumstances could I ever reconcile in my mind giving Vladimir Putin 20% of our uranium. And then when you realize that they knew in 2009 that Putin had agents in the country and that there was bribery and extortion and money laundering and other crimes being committed, they knew it all. Mueller knew it. Holder knew it. The Justice Department, the FBI knew it. And they did nothing to stop the deal, and Vladimir ends up being successful. Then you add the kickbacks that David was talking about, and then a Manafort indictment that has nothing to do with Russia. Nothing.
Well, it's a crime to use your public office, like Secretary of State, to confer a benefit to a foreign government, Uranium One sale, in exchange for money, millions to the Clinton Foundation and $500,000 to Bill Clinton. It's bribery, gratuity, mail fraud, wire fraud,
pay to play.
It could be racketeering.
Yeah.
What's that?
And pay to play.
Yeah, those are all pay-to-play statutes. There really are 6 of them. And it's confounding, I think, to a great many people how Hillary manages to continue to get away with it. And now you've got the Trump dossier paid for by the Clinton campaign and the DNC. Look, Papadopoulos was not charged with collusion because it doesn't exist. It's not a crime to talk to a Russian. It is a crime, in Hillary's case, to lavish millions of dollars on foreign nationals, Russians, and filing a false or misleading campaign report about it. That's a crime under the Federal Election Campaign Act. And so it's equally confounding that she's managed to get away with that as well.
David, what's your reaction to that?
Couldn't agree more. And it's hard to imagine that there isn't some causal connection in the Russians' payments to the Clintons and what the Clintons served up by way of United States security compromises. Why would the Russians pay Bill Clinton $500,000 to give a stupid speech? What do they care about his stupid speeches when he's no longer in power?
But it's even worse than that. He was being paid by a bank that had a financial interest in Uranium One. He tried to meet with nuclear representatives from Russia. Then he met with Vladimir Putin.
And the Clinton Foundation got millions upon millions.
145 million, we're told.
Yeah, but for what? Are they interested in the Clinton library? Really, this is how can there not be a causal connection, Greg Jarrett?
Well, you can prove a case like that just based on circumstantial evidence. And I'm looking forward to the confidential informant. And Sean and I have both talked to the lawyer for the confidential informant who has indicated that her client can connect the dots implicating Hillary Clinton. So we'll have to wait and see. But even without him, you could still prove a case.
You guys, the Never Trump guys are always saying that we Trump supporters are using whataboutism, are always trying to divert charges like the Clintons used to do. When they got accused of something, they fired back. This is not what we're doing. What we're saying is there is no collusion between Trump and Russia. Therefore, we don't need to divert from it. But there is collusion or strong evidence of collusion between the Clintons and Russia, and there ought to be an investigation about it, and there ought to be consequences. It's not whataboutism. It's not diversion. It's not rationalization.
I got to let you both go. We're going to have more coming up at the bottom of this half hour. Thank you both for being with us. We'll have more on TV tonight, 9 Eastern, Hannity. This is going to be probably the hardest-hitting monologue I ever give because America is now at a crossroads. Are we going to have equal justice under the law? And I will explain all of it in detail. That's coming up tonight at 9. When we come back, Laura Ingraham joins us and much more right here on The Sean Hannity Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Linda of The Sean Hannity Show. We have an announcement today that unfortunately our boss will never make because he's too modest and too proud. But
what's that?
Let There Be Light was number 2 in per-screen average nationwide in its debut week in movie theaters. So this past Friday.
I already said this earlier in the show.
Excuse me, but I'm saying it in a special way. I have a breaking news sounder.
We go.
I've got effects. If people could see me, my hands are waving. It's very effective. And not only that, there's a whole new list of people listening now. People just got in their cars. They're on their way home. Maybe they didn't hear you earlier,
Well, I want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
No, not to you, to the audience. You saw the movie a year ago. You saw its first original cut. I had no idea what to expect this weekend. Absolutely none. We did this whole thing independently. We had no studio backing at all. And it is extraordinarily difficult to have a success. But we knew we had a great product. And that's the whole reason I got involved, because this will stimulate your mind, Let There Be Light, your heart, your emotions, your soul. And the testimonials that we got back just have blown me away. Beyond our wildest dreams. Let me give you a number. So we're in the top 10 movies in the country, and we only had 14% of the screens that all the other movies had in the top 10. We only had 14%. Now, let me give you one example. So, what's the movie with Damon and Clooney? They debuted this weekend too.
I don't know what stupid name. Suburbicon?
Whatever. All right. So Clooney's movie is in 2,046 theaters. Let There Be Light is in 373 theaters. We nearly beat them in terms of box office this weekend. We had about $900,000 less than their movie, which was in 2,046 theaters. We're in 373. And it has one of the highest ratings ever on Rotten Tomatoes. It is, I think, number 5, I was told earlier today, don't hold me to this fact, of all debuts of all faith-based movies in history. Number 2, in terms of number 2 in terms of
the per screens. So you're number 2 in the per screens ratings.
Yeah, per screen rating, which is number 2. In other words, I'll give you an example. So we had over $5,000 per screen per person, and they only had 1,000, meaning George Clooney's movie. It has become a massive breakout hit, and here's the fascinating thing: because all of you worked so hard to get to the movie this weekend, you're now going to make it easier for others to get to it this weekend. And the word of mouth and the testimonials and the inspirational message that people have gotten for this and the letters and the things that I've been reading on Twitter has blown me away. And it's the only reason that I did the movie. The only reason at all. Anyway, number 2 in per screen average in its debut week. and it attracted over $5,000 a screen compared to like a little over $1,000 for this stupid movie, $1,300 for George Clooney's movie. It's unbelievable. And all of you made that happen, and I'm glad you liked it. I'm not going to lie to you. This was a massive financial risk on my part. I did it because I loved the story. I did it because I loved the message. I did it, and I never thought it would come out as good as it came out. And I was nearly brought to tears all weekend reading what people had to say, how this movie has impacted them in a positive way, how they're sick and tired of Hollywood movies, you know, the same old formula. You know, what's come out? Another Iron Man, I guess, this weekend, 4? Is that what they're calling this thing? You know, you have Thor Ragnarok. Oh, okay. Spider-Man 90. Batman 82. Superman 155. Jennifer Aniston falls in love with some Hollywood good-looking actor 978. I mean, this is different. This is a totally independent, different project, and obviously your response has been phenomenal. If you can tell your friends if you liked it. There was one lady that wrote me and said she didn't like it, one lady on Twitter. And I wrote her back on direct message, and I said, would you like me to refund your money? I said, I'll give you your money back. And she said, no, because I want to see more faith-based films. And, you know, she just didn't like, she actually said she got so angry at Kevin Sorbo in the opening scene, she couldn't get over it because he was so good at playing the atheist that wrote the book Aborting God. But I have been told people stayed in their seats, the whole theater, watching the credits roll. Nobody ever does that. People were crying. People were sharing experiences. It's everything that I wanted it to be. And the good news is in the weeks to come now, this is guaranteed that so many other people will be able to see this movie. I'm going to be frank. If the movie bombed this past weekend, that would have been it. It would have been straight to DVD and over. And I probably would have lost a fortune, which I didn't care about. I didn't do this for money. I don't care about the money. It's not my thing. But I did this.
It's no fun when you're not a little bit gloaty. I mean,
I'm not gloating.
I'm really enjoying this.
I honestly
do you know
had no idea.
George Clooney is
What did
today?
I tell you all last week? I said I have no idea what to expect.
No, we've been talking about it like it's just.
I just
not
have
our
no
world.
idea.
Our
I
world
don't
is
know.
news.
I had no idea what to expect.
But
I was very proud of the outcome and how it came out, and I thought people would love it. And they did.
There's just like a little piece of me, and I know
No.
you're very Christian, and I'm gonna.
You want to gloat for me?
I'm gonna gloat for you. I'm gonna own it a little bit. I'm gonna have a little bit of that.
I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you why. When you read the testimonials and you hear people say, "I couldn't stop crying. This touched my heart so deeply. This helped heal."
Yeah, well, George Clooney's crying today too. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, George Clooney's very aware
He
of who
needs a
Sean.
lot of tissues.
George Clooney is very aware that
Him
Sean
and Matt
Hannity got
Damon?
into the movie business this
They
weekend.
need some tissues.
Ooh, they got their ass handed to them. I'll say that.
Oh yeah.
All right, there's that part of me. But I reading the testimonials and the feedback and the reviews of people that saw it absolutely blew me away in terms of the impact it's had on people's lives. And you told me back 2 years ago I was crazy to do this. And then when I only had 373 theaters because no studio would touch us, I said, you're right, I'm probably going to get crushed this weekend. And I was prepared for it. I can handle anything. But it just is so amazing. Imagine, we're in the top 10. We only had 14% of the screens every other movie had. 14%. You know, literally, we almost beat Clooney's movie. He had 2,046 theaters, and we had 373. It's crazy how good this thing is done, and I'm very thankful to everybody for supporting it. And you have now created an opportunity for us to grow this movie and send it around the country and hopefully touch more people's hearts. And that's all I wanted to do with this thing. And so far, a success, and I hope you'll tell your friends about it. We'll have new movie theaters as the week unfolds. I won't tell you about that until later, but I'm very humbled by all of it, and thank you to everybody. And the Sorbos did a great job. They produced a great product. And that's what inspired me to get involved in the first place. All right, let me get to, let's say hi to Mary Beth is in Arkansas. What's up, Mary Beth? How are you? Glad you're there. What's happening?
Hey, way to go. Good things happen to good people.
Did you see the movie by any chance?
I haven't. I'm in Arkansas, and I'll find a studio. I'm at like around 4 states right here, and I will find it. But you do know that independent movies do get nominated for Academy Awards. Wouldn't that be another miracle?
That hell will freeze over. before I'm ever nominated for Best Executive Producer.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Could you imagine the speech I'm going to give in front of all of those Hollywood elites? I promise you now, it'll make news. I promise. It'll make big news.
Wait. You know what Sean will do? Sean will get up and he'll give his acceptance speech, and then he'll say, so let's talk about the abuse that's going on in the culture here and the pedophilia and Harvey Weinstein, make everyone like super uncomfortable. I think you would do that,
and
Sean.
he will look so good in his blue jeans.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Wow. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I hope you see it this weekend. Sunny.
I will.
All right, Sunny in Alexandria, Virginia did see it. All right, straight up, how'd you like it?
Sean, it was great.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Oh, my gosh. I was just so deeply moved by it. I put 3 words to describe it. It's personal, it's powerful, and it's poignant. And it everybody, and for those who haven't seen it yet, keep on pushing forward. Go get it. Go see it. Because it's such a important thing for everyone to see. It touches into the depths of all of us.
Let me ask you this. Did a lot of people in the theater cry?
Yes.
And did people stay after the movie and watch the credits roll?
They did, Sean.
That never happens. That's what everybody's telling me, that you know that never happens. Everyone can't get up fast enough.
Well, they stayed. I stayed. I was so deeply moved by it, and I have just 2 questions for you, Sean. First one is, when will it? I know it's going to be in theaters for a while now, and praise the Lord for that. But I would love to get it on DVD because I want it in my collection, and I want to give it to everyone I love.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Without getting too deep into the business aspect of this is all new to me. But because of its success this weekend, we have already triggered the home on demand market. We have triggered an Epix deal. We have triggered a DVD deal. Everything this weekend literally means that millions and millions of more people will see it. And it was all contingent on one weekend, believe it or not. Everything was riding on this weekend and, frankly, next weekend. And because it did so well, it's going to hit all of those markets. I'm just glad it touched you. All right, to be honest, did you cry? And did the ending kill you, or what? The ending, you didn't predict that part, did you?
Well, no one could have predicted that, and I don't want to spoil it.
No, don't spoil it. Yeah.
I do have to say that I looked at that and I thought, now, if we can have life imitate art and have the same ending in a sense, and that would be with your special program that you did in the movie, and not have that just be part of the movie. But can we make that happen in real life, Sean? Because I think that would be just the greatest thing that could happen this Christmas.
Let me just say from my heart to yours, that is my better self. That's what I would wish as well. I really would, because you know what? There's a lot of, as the movie started out, there's a lot of darkness in this world today. And you know what? We need some more light. We need some more goodness. We need, if people fall down, everyone wants to crucify them. Can they get back up? I'll say this. We've been following the Mark Halperin story. Did you read the Mark Halperin story? This had happened, I guess, a decade ago. And in the last decade, he wrote about how he knew he was wrong. He knew his behavior was atrocious. He went to get help. It doesn't mean that all these companies associated with him didn't have to do what they did. But he wants to be a better person. I don't even like Mark Halperin. But I felt that, everybody at some point needs a chance to be a better person in life. And he owned up to it. And I don't wish anybody, to have darkness dominate their lives. And so maybe put me down as I hope he stays on his path. I don't wish him any ill will. Sonny, you made my day. I just never said to the audience that there was so much riding on this weekend. It was all riding on one weekend. And when we couldn't get theaters, we were actually boxed out, if you want to know the truth, by big studios. Now they're banging on our door. And so we'll see what happens. We're going to be adding this week, between this week and next week, there's going to be, hundreds of new theaters that the movie's going to appear in. But it was a little gutsy and, dangling out there in thin air for a while. But it all worked out. I'm glad you all loved it. The feedback is amazing. All right, let's get to our phones as we say hi to Tom is in Phoenix, Arizona, 55 KFYI. What's going on, Tom? How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
What's going on, sir?
Well, hi, Sean. I long-time listener, first-time caller. Appreciate everything you do, and would love to say that to me, 2 hours a night, you and Tucker hit it out of the park every night. You guys are devastating to the left, and I love the truth of what we get from you guys. And that's 2 hours that are DVR'd every night for me. And thank you so much for what you're doing, sir. Secondly, just want to talk about the Trump dossier. And for me, last week was kind of pulling my hair out, listening to some of the stuff that was going on with that. And as far as I'm concerned, it seems like to me, everybody's talking about where it came from, where it started, whatever. But somehow this got to John McCain quite early. And I don't think we know everything where his fingerprints lie and what's not and what's going on with that. I just think that somebody needs to take another look at that and then check into where he got everything from and who he tried to peddle it to and where he went with this thing and how that was working for us. So I just think that's a problem and hope somebody can try to find out and see where he
I promise you we are not giving up. And I think tonight at 9 is one of the most important monologues I'm going to do, because we are going to tell you the things that matter and how absolutely deceptive, dishonest, corrupt all of this is. And I actually say America's hanging in the balance based on whether or not this country is going to have equal justice under the law or whether or not we have a dual justice system. This is now a moment of truth for this country. And I will explain all of that tonight on the Fox News Channel, 9 Eastern. Anyway, thank you for your call. Good points. All right, Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern. We have a monologue about the future of this country I don't think you're going to want to miss. Also, we have the counselor to the president, Jay Sekulow. We have Newt Gingrich. We have Sebastian Gorka. We have Greg Jarrett and much more. It's all coming up tonight, 9 to 10. Set your DVR. I promise this is going to be hard-hitting. This will tell the truth the media lies about. All right, thanks for being with us. See you tonight at 9. Back here tomorrow.